The incarceration rate of Louisiana, which has the most people in prison than any other state, is over 5 times higher than Saudi Arabia. So 5 times higher. Louisiana incarceration rate is about 1,000 per 100,000 people. Okay, that's the metric. Saudi Arabia's is 207. So you have 1,000 people versus 200 people. Huge difference. Now, I'll read it off. While the United States as a whole has the world's 6th highest incarceration rate at 531 per 100,000, they have the most people in prison than any other country on earth. Louisiana's rate is more than double the national average. That means that Louisiana locks up higher percentage of the population than any democratic country on earth. So I wanted to go over Louisiana itself. Okay, so they have a prison called Angola. It's very famous for being one of the most brutal prisons in the country. They have a rodeo where inmates participate in dangerous events for public entertainment. Jesus. Critics argue this exploits prisoners and puts them at unnecessary risk of injury. No shit.
Yeah, literally the Coliseum.
Right. Are you not entertained? David Wade Correctional Center lawsuit. A class action lawsuit was filed against this prison for allegedly subjecting mentally ill prisoners to extreme isolation, inadequate care, and abuse. Totally messed up. We do this to the mentally ill in this country, is that if you commit a crime, it doesn't matter if you're mentally ill. They're going to just throw you in prison. Now, we famously executed a mentally handicapped person. You can't sink much lower than that. Orleans Parish Prison. Now, I lived in Louisiana, and I know how bad it is. They have Napoleonic law, which means when you get arrested or if you get a summons, it's fill in the blank. They can just put whatever they want. And I've had friends who are, street musicians or home bums or whatever, that they will do anything. And this is like a myth, but it's real because I've seen it happen. Crimes that you can be charged with: obstructing the flight path of a pigeon, blocking the sidewalk, molesting a cheeseburger. There's this long list of this mythos about the way homeless people and like degenerates are treated in New Orleans. I had a friend that disappeared into the correctional. He went to jail, disappeared for 3-4 months. Couldn't find him. Went to the police station, asking. I asked him, and I said, "Can you check on my friend?" They said, "If you don't get the fuck out of here, we're going to put you in jail too." I said, "Okay, look, I'm out of here." The Jenna 6 case was a controversial case, highlighted the racial disparities in the juvenile detention system when 6 black teenagers were initially charged with attempted murder for a schoolyard fight with a white student. The Angola 3 case, 3 inmates, Herman Wallace, Albert Woodfox, and Robert King, were held in solitary confinements for decades at Angola, sparking international outcry. The work release program scandal in 2017, an investigation revealed that widespread abuse with Livingston Parish's work release program, including inmates using drug and leaving facilities unsupervised. Hey, if convicts want to use drugs, hey, man, I don't blame you. The Elaine Hunt Correctional Center COVID outbreak. The prison faced criticism for handling major COVID-19 outbreak, of course. The prisons don't care about these things.
The amount of prisoners who must have died of COVID during the worst of the epidemic, it's mind-blowing.
I couldn't imagine. We'll do the research on it. And if anybody knows, let us know in the comments if what's going on with that. Louisiana State Penitentiary healthcare lawsuit in 2015. A class action lawsuit was filed over inadequate medical care at Angola, citing cases of inmates suffering and dying from treatable conditions, which, I've heard everything from bed bugs to lice. Recently there was this story about a prison in America that had bed bugs so bad that a dude died from having bed bugs because he was left untreated. They just ate him alive. It was horrible. Something you'd see in Turkish prison. That what was that movie where he smuggles hash? It's like Midnight Run or Midnight, something like that. Anyway, Iberia Parish Sheriff's Office house scandal. There were several deputies that were convicted of civil rights violations, abusing inmates. So look, it's just a long laundry list of abuses, as you can imagine, in a backwards place like Louisiana is. So the disparity becomes even more alarming when you compare it to other developed nations, like Germany, for instance. It incarcerates only 67 per 100,000 people, while Japan's rate is 36 per 100,000. Even Russia, known for its tough stance on crime, has a lower rate than Louisiana at 300 per 100,000. So the top private prisons in the United States, most people probably know them already, but if you don't, one is CoreCivic, formerly called Corrections Corporation of America. It operates 65 correctional facilities at a total capacity of 80,000 beds. And then you have Geo Group, which also is 57 facilities at 49,000 beds. Now, these are both publicly traded. Sick fucks out there can go buy the stock and invest into it if they think, that's a good investment. But private prison industry, again, here's another aspect of it, which you wonder, why do we have more people in prison than any other country in the world? Well, the truth is, wow, free labor is pretty sweet, isn't it, Mike?
Mm-hmm. I remember a couple years back, there was a viral video, and it was fake, like it was a sketch, but it looked convincing enough for some people. This guy, he filmed himself doing like one of those landlord advice, like how to make money in the real estate business videos. But he was talking about buying a prison. He's like, I'm a landlord. I own several hundred units. So it actually just made sense to buy a prison. Once you make enough money, you can just buy one of these. And it essentially is just the same thing as real estate. But now your tenants are there by force. It's a captive audience of tenants. It's like, and he was talking about how it's so beneficial. He was like literally breaking down the numbers. It's like you buy this prison for this many millions of dollars, but it returns this much, and all the money is guaranteed from the state because these prisoners are always going to be in there. And if you find yourself losing capacity, you can always lobby your politicians to enforce, tougher crime laws, which they will do because it's always electorally popular for politicians to be tough on crime. And then people got so outraged by it, but like it was a sketch. Like the guy, it was fake. Once you Googled the guy's name, like he was like a comedic actor. But that is the case. Like the people who own private prisons aren't stupid enough to make a video showcasing how grotesque of people they are, right? Like, but that doesn't mean that they aren't doing it or that this doesn't exist. Like it is a real thing.
Yeah. They play it down as if it's a necessary evil in the society they live in. I'm helping the community. You have to build prisons, so we have to do it. And several corporations in the United States have been reported to use prison labor. So the thing was, Walmart, McDonald's, Victoria's Secret, you got prisoners making lingerie, AT&T, Starbucks, Microsoft, Boeing, they're making parts, Nordstrom, Target, Whole Foods. There was a story about them making cheese for Whole Foods. So all you white liberals going to buy it's organic cheese, it's so good. You're some guy who got caught with a sack of weed, and it has, 10 years in prison, is making your cheese for you.
I was thinking that is the way to get liberals to care about this, is to like really make it hit home to them that prisoners are handling their lingerie and their Whole Foods cheeses, because I think that would, like, just that level of disgust, for as progressive as they claim to be, the idea of like prisoners who might be black or brown handling their intimate goods on a daily basis is like, that would horrify them.
Yeah, dude. And conservatives don't care. Let's be honest. Well, they shouldn't have
they would
broken
be openly
the law.
horrified.
Yeah. But liberals, we at least have a chance of saying, hey, look, if you're so fucking ethical, listen, just for a second, Yeah, again, BP, Caterpillar, Chevron, Eddie Bauer, Kmart, all of them using prison labor. So, the situation in Louisiana is exacerbated by its unique system of housing state prisoners in local jails. So you have more than half of the people serving state sentences are held in local parish jails, which don't have the same adequate health care and rehabilitation programs and stuff. Jails mostly are temporary holding places, while prisons are supposed to be more long-term in this way. And as of 2021, the U.S. had approximately 1.8 million people incarcerated in various facilities, including state and federal prisons, local jails, juvenile correction facilities, and immigrant detention centers. So, just an incredible fucked up system from the get-go. And so I wrote here that the United States and Saudi Arabia, the two bastions of justice with their own unique flair for handling these pesky lawbreakers. Let's start with the good old US of A. 531 national incarceration rate. 531 per 100,000. Saudi Arabia's is 207 per 100,000. So the state that gave us jazz and jambalaya also gives us a prison population that would make the most authoritarian regimes blush. In Saudi Arabia, they executed about 196 people in 2022, with this number increased about, I think it was 16 to 20% from the year before. The United States, on the other hand, executed 18 people in 22, but this was up from 11 the year before. So, and both countries, executions are on the rise. But I do have to say, they do execute more people in Saudi Arabia. But again, this is a backwards authoritarian theocracy that we love to waggle our fingers at. So, and the truth is, I think they're making strides to become more modern in this way, and their poverty rate is going down while our poverty rate in America is going up. So it's like, I'm not interested.
Also tends to solve crime.
Right. I'm not interested in too much, narrative bending here, but the truth is they do execute more people in Saudi Arabia. That's a given. So it's a buffet of bad behavior, and the American justice system is more than happy to serve up a heaping helping of incarceration. Let's not forget the private prison industry, CoreCivic, Geo Group, and the tidy profit that they make from it. There was the famous Kids for Cash scandal where they were, funneling children into detention centers because these corporate private prisons get reimbursed for each convict they get. They'll get tax subsidies back. And so the object is to fill them up to the brim. And so you had this judge who was receiving bribes and kickbacks in order to streamline the process of getting young kids who maybe they were just talking back to their parents into correctional facilities for 8, 9, 12 months at a time. The Kids for Cash scandal, if you don't know about it, look it up. Totally egregious, totally insane world we live in. So there you go, folks. Incarceration in America, it's a great capitalist institution.
Now, if I told you, Chris, that there were, let's say, in China, Russia, and North Korea, Iran, Saudi Arabia, wherever, all these places that you already kind of just think of as dystopian and authoritarian. If I told you that the people there knew very well that they had more prisoners per capita by orders of magnitude than any other country in the world, if they knew that they contained, just a fraction of the population of the world, but still, even despite having 5% of the population, they had 25% of the world's prisoners, and the population knew about it, but that they excused it by saying, oh, it's only because we're so lenient, because we lock up people instead of just executing them immediately, like all those other, dystopian authoritarian countries. Or those other countries are just lying about their numbers. They actually have way more prisoners than us, but we just don't have access to their data because they're a bunch of lying, corrupt, authoritarian dictators. If I told you that about all those people in those 4 countries, you would say, oh yeah, those people are heavily propagandized. They're all brainwashed by their regime leaders. That is what I'm telling you about Americans. It's like, that is literally the case. It's like Americans are more brainwashed than they think anyone else is in a dystopian dictatorship. They know about their outsized prison population, they know about their outsized military-industrial complex and the hundreds of military bases around the world, but they still think that other countries are the purveyors of terrorism around the world, that the other countries are the aggressors on the world stage, or that other countries even have the possibility of being imperialist. And that is American delusion distilled. Yeah.
And this is on purpose, and because politics is predicated on the manipulation of the masses, and the masses are an organism that is incredibly easy to direct, but you have to do it through fear mongering, and you have to do it through, this false entitlement about your patriotic duty to America. It's a Machiavellian art to try to get the masses all moving one direction, and they don't have any ethics about it, because let's face it, any attempt to organize society, you're going to end up sweeping a bunch of people under the bus. Even any attempt to organize society, even if under communism, unless we get to a libertarian, more free kind of communism, any kind of state or government or even corporate control, whatever it is, anytime you try to get everybody to be on the same page, you're coercing people, you're manipulating people, it becomes unethical. It's just the way it is, Unless you have an authoritarian regime that is about health and freedom and respect for each other and alleviating poverty and stuff, I'll go out for that. But even then, these politicians, why do they lie so often to our faces? Is because that's their job.